Chapter 1184 has dropped, I think, damn near 5 days ago. So without further ado, let's jump right into the chapter review. And this is a good one. And like I said last video in the last discussion about 1183, Oda has gone away from the Emu fight, and we have gone into Brooke's backstory in of itself, as we will see flashbacks in this chapter. So if you guys wanted to see Brooke, here he is. I mean, we don't really got a choice. I'm loving the Brooke backstory though, but I know some people, I know the leakers, they called this chapter boring for some reason, but I was absolutely loving it. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So in 1183, we went back 70 years and we saw Shuri at the age of 7 years old with Brooke at the head of the corpse guard. And now where we take place in 1184, we go 7 years in the future. So if my math is correct, that's 63 years from the present day in Elbaf. So Shuri is 14 and we see her in this corpse guard outfit, almost like she's training, and there is some love suitors that she is basically denying and saying how she only has love for one person, and the person she does marry has to be able to sing, has to be strong, has to play music and an instrument. And we all kind of know who she's talking about. She's referring to Brooke, as Brooke is on the next panel that we see. And then they kind of have a little conversation. I wasn't a fan of where Oda took the conversation with Shuri. I'm not really liking where her character is going. I know a lot of people are saying that she might be the next Straw Hat. I am not very well subscribed to that theory. I don't think she should be. I know these are two different characters, as well as Brooke has described her as having 3 personalities when we did see her. And again, I have a theory on her eyes, and that's a whole different video. But I'm not liking where her character is going. And if you guys have read the chapter, you guys know what I'm referring to, with Oda just throwing in a weird line. I don't know why Oda did that, and I don't know if it's just the translators just getting something wrong, but it was very weird. And it's, I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time on that. It was very weird. Let's move on. But moving past that, we finally get to see Shuri and Brooke finally sit down, and Brooke gets to sing a song, and the song is very fitting. He speaks about how there will only be bones left when he moves on. And as we know, Brooke is a skeleton now, with us 63 years in the future on the Straw Hat crew. So it's very fitting for his character. And the name of the chapter is, I believe, When There's Only Bones Left Behind. So that is very fitting, because that is a direct callback to this song that he is playing. And Shuri's loving the music as she does. And it is just a very wholesome moment that we get between the two characters. As the song gets cut short, we get some conversation between Shuri and Brooke. And they start talking about the Queen and the King, and just meeting the King 2 chapters ago, it's getting more and more, I think, obvious that he is a Davy descendant. There's been a lot of theories that he is a Davy descendant, and I don't know how I feel about this. If that's the case, the Queen is most likely a holy knight that was sent in to infiltrate Hesperia on like a little underground thing. And as we will see in the tail end of the chapter, she does get sound effects that we only see Mihawk get. So there is a lot of mystery between the King and the Queen, and it's very interesting to see Brooke's relationship with the King, because as we go on to learn that he says to Shuri, the King loves his music and he basically saved him, and Brooke owes the King his life. As we then get a flashback in a flashback, and we go back to Brooke's younger years on Hesperia, and I was getting a lot of I'm blanking on this. The kingdom where Luffy, Sabo, and Ace grew up. I'm getting a lot of vibes like that, where there is a nice kingdom, and on the other side of the island, there is just a trash heap. And that is really where Brooke grew up, and he was seen spying on some people playing instruments. They basically ran him off because they thought he was a thug, just because of his appearance and how he's looking. He's very run down, and he looks very, very impoverished. And we get to see how he makes the most of his situation. He made I believe, a violin out of some trash, and he's singing. And the King, he is currently a prince right now, but the King pulls up on Brooke, and they have like a nice meal. Brooke makes him I believe it's a frog. He makes him like a really bad dish, but the King, the prince right now, he's really just taken aback how Brooke doesn't see him like how everybody else sees him, and he gets lost in thought. And he's basically he can't get over the fact that Brooke truly sees him as a human, and that allows them to bond over this meal, over this frog that Brooke made. And the King gets so lost in thought, he ends up eating the frog, and he doesn't like it at all because it is horrible. But Brooke thinks that he is just taken aback by by the flavor of the dish, and it's just a really, really wholesome and funny moment. But as the dish is brought to an end, the king tries to compensate him, but Brooke does not want any compensation as he sees him as his big brother, and he's just like, I was just doing what was right. He was just feeding you, and that truly, I believe that sparked the relationship between the king and Brooke. And as we see on the next few pages and the next few panels, they keep coming back. They keep having these moments over food, over just chilling, some music, stuff like that, and they really do form a great bond. But while they were eating, we heard Brooke talk about how he had some curry powder from a naval ship that he used on the frogs, and that's what he thought the king was loving when he ate his food. But that is very important because as the next few pages go on, we get to see Brooke tied down. And as Brooke is tied down, we go on to find out that the criminals who stole the powder from the Marine ship blamed it on Brooke because Brooke ended up just getting curry powder, but they didn't know that. So the criminals blamed it on Brooke, and Brooke is tied up, and he's basically singing to himself to not die. And he's trying to take his mind off of death, and he's just singing to himself. And it's extremely dark. Like, Oda has just been going in a really dark direction, especially with Elbath. But it is crazy how, like, we're going in this direction. But the king and who we go on to know as the queen, they pull up, and we get to see the queen in the guards position that Brooke is holding in the current story. Well, not the current story, but where we meet Shuri, that position that he's holding. And it's really interesting to see the dynamic between the future king and queen. But as Leuven pulls through, and that is the prince and the king's name, I haven't mentioned that yet, but as Leuven pulls through, we finally get to see Brooke get untied, and Leuven saves him. And Brooke really does take a liking to this side of Leuven, and he notes the swordsmanship. So it's very interesting to see that Brooke not only learned instruments thanks to Leuven, he also learned swordsmanship. So Leuven really does owe, Brooke really does owe a lot to Leuven, especially his life. But beyond even that, just who he is as a person. The Brooke we know in the current story is literally the blueprint from Leuven. But we do get some pretty interesting lines from Candel, which will be the queen, and that is who we know her in the current flashback. But she says, "I'm nothing but your devoted steel blade." And it's really, really interesting because as we know, there are god knights and there are god blades and stuff like that. So there's been a lot of similarities drawn to Candel, Holy Knights, Emu, and of course I mentioned the sound effect earlier. There was just a lot of ties being brought in between Candel and Holy Knights, and I don't know. I don't know. I feel like Oda is just painting the picture too clear for us. I don't know if he's going to spin it in a different direction, but Candel is looking like a Holy Knight more and more as the pages and chapters keep releasing. As the chapter comes to a close, we get to see Candel, Brooke, and Leuven back in the palace, and we get to see Candel kind of scold Leuven for going on and neglecting his royal duties as a prince, and who we will now further know as the king. So that's pretty funny. And she basically says that you can't be doing all this, da 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 da, and basically scolds him for the direction that he was going in the kingdom. And as a royal, you can't really be seen in that direction. And that is why Leuven was so drawn to Brooke, because Brooke didn't treat him like a royal. He treated him like a human being, and that was the appeal for Leuven. And I feel like that's really what sparked the bond between Brooke and Leuven. But Candel goes on to basically charm Brooke, and that is where the love of Candel is born from Brooke. And he basically rolls over and just passes out on some Sanji-esque. And then we get to see Leuven go on in the background and go, get this man some instruments, get this boy some teachings, a new star will be born as the chapter ends. And this is a really, really fun chapter. Again, it wasn't like the past Elbaf chapters where we've been seeing what constant heavy hitter fights, but I feel like this was a very, very good chapter. And for the leakers calling it boring, I really do feel like they just don't appreciate the lore that we are getting, because again, we're in the final saga and we are getting backstory on a character that we've already gotten backstory on. Just think about it like that. Brooke is now 2 backstories, and we're getting backstories in a backstory. So it's like Oda is just in his bag with this, and it's really, really crazy to see where Oda is taking this, because again, like I talked about it before, when we got the official introduction to Candel in the flashback, same sound effects as Mihawk. What does this mean? So Mihawk and Candel are 2 very, very interesting characters because there's no direct ties to anywhere with them, but there's been a lot of same terminology between Holy Knights and Candel, especially with the sound effects and covenant language that we're seeing with the steel blade stuff and that. And as we know, Gunko is a vessel for Emu, so that could be a genetic thing. And with a Holy Knight bearing a child, that could be how the genetics are passed down and how Gunko's genetically fit to suit the vessel of Emu, which is very, very interesting. But if that's the case, that definitely ties Mihawk to Emu again. I've talked about a little bit about this on the channel before, but I really do think Mihawk is a past God's Knight. I think he was the top rank of the God's Knights, and he basically defected, and that's where we see him again. The ringed eyes. Shuri has two different colored eyes, and like I mentioned before, people are very heavy on the speculation of Leuven being a Davy back, and excuse me, not a Davy back. That's Foxy. Davy back fights. That's different. A Davy, and there's a lot of just layers in that theory itself. But what really speaks to me is if he's a Davy and Candela is a Holy Knight, we now know of where all these Davies are currently scattering out. As we know, God Valley was their home, but Isperia is where one of them kind of relocated. So that means there's multiple Davies. There could be multiple branches of Davies out in the world. So we could be meeting a lot more Davies as the story progresses. But like I said, overall, I absolutely love this chapter, and unfortunately, there is a break. So 1185 will be coming out a week from this Thursday. So whenever you guys are seeing this, if that Thursday passed, that chapter will be coming out that week. So I can't wait for 1185, and kind of pulling it back to speak on Shuri in of itself. People are saying, I've seen a lot of theories that Shuri is going to be the next Straw Hat. I don't like that theory, but let's talk about it and let's basically discuss it. If she is the next Straw Hat, that will kind of put balance into the thing. But a lot of people are saying that she is, one, she's a good Devil Fruit user. She could give us lore on Emu, and she'll basically be the catalyst on how we get into the final saga. What ties the crew more into the final saga more than just Luffy being the sun god and just all the other ties. I don't really like that theory because I have a really, really strong belief and subscription to Bonnie being the next Straw Hat. I think it just ties up so well with all the Kuma ties to Luffy. Luffy and Kuma are so heavily connected, especially what we saw in the Kuma flashback to Dragons, how Kuma basically watched over Luffy's development since he was a kid. And I feel like Kuma sending Bonnie out to find Nika and finally getting that liberation that she got of all the trauma of just between Kuma, Ginny, and Bonnie on Egghead, and finally unlocking the freedom and seeing her go into Gear 5, I feel like all the writing is there for her to be the next Straw Hat. But there's also another route that she's going to take because I believe Lilith is going to be left behind on Elbaf. I think Elbaf is going to be the Straw Hat's next territory. Again, that's a whole different story because that's going to cause stuff with Shanks. But I think Lilith is going to stay back on on Elbaf. That's going to leave Bonnie with a potential way to lay back with Lilith because as we know, Vegapunk, they had beef, but Vegapunk is like her second father, and that would be really, really, like, that would also be a suitable way for her to be relevant to the story, and also it would make sense for her to stay back with Vegapunk. And again, I don't think Loki's going to stay on the crew. I don't think he's going to join the crew. It's kind of in a similar fashion to why Yamato isn't on the crew. She needs to stay back and hold down Wano. Loki is going to have to stay down and hold down Elbaf because, again, the world government's going to keep trying to attack Elbaf now that Elbaf is prominent. So that's going to keep coming. And I think Gunko, she's going to be a really, really heavy asset to us, but I don't think she's going to be the next Straw Hat. I think she is going to be how we will unlock the Galilei Giants because, as we know, Ragnar's Flash Freeze is only unlockable through him. But there could be another way out of this because Jinbei was saying how they need to identify and basically classify if she should be kept alive or killed. That's, excuse me, that's on Brooke. So if Brooke deems her valuable enough to be alive, she could potentially join the crew, but I feel like even beyond the crew, we're going to get an answer to Ragnar's Flash Freeze, and that would lead us into the Galilei Giants, which, again, there's so many tie-ins, and it is just insane how well woven, excuse me, I was tripping over my words a little bit, how well woven the final saga of One Piece is getting. It's genuinely insane. And thank you guys again for all the love and support you guys have been giving the channel. 56 subscribers as of recording this, which is absolutely insane. We hit the milestone of 50, I think this Sunday. So a few more days and more people are joining the family, and it's honestly insane, guys. You are making my passion and my like dreams a reality over here, and I just can't stop talking about all the stuff I love, and I'm glad you guys are enjoying that. Go check out the other videos. I just posted a TBR about June. I got a lot of different manga up here besides One Piece that I am reading, so I can't wait to get back to you on that one, guys. And yeah, just highly consider liking and subscribing. That would mean a lot to me. And I can't wait to get to you guys in 1185 when that drops in the next few weeks. And stay put because I'm gonna be. I talked a little bit about it up here, but there will be a Shuri theory in-depth video coming soon. Just need to get my head around more aspects of that theory. But once it's done and finalized in my brain, we will get it back to you guys. So with that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one and go check out other stuff on the channel. Peace, guys.